Hi everyone, it's me again. Today I'm going to read you chapter 3 of my book, Wildmoore, Wrath of Zane. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 3, Evading the Bully. The next day, Natalie was dressed in a pale purple t-shirt, a white and black plaid long-sleeved shirt over her t-shirt, blue jeans, and brown leather running boots. She was sitting alone at her lunch table, which was the usual thing for her, and pulled out her journal with the photo of herself as a newborn and her mother holding her in her arms, being its only bookmark. She was eating a ham and cheese sandwich while looking at the blank pages of her journal, trying to take Miss Danford's advice to write more about what she dreamt of many times. But when her pen was about to touch the blank paper of her journal, she immediately hesitated and unclicked her pen before putting it back in her pencil case. This better not be what writer's block looks like, Natalie thought to herself before proceeding to eat her lunch. She closed her journal, using the photo of her mother and her newborn self as a bookmark, out of defeat, and finished her lunch before the bell rang for her next class. Natalie was about to reach her history class when a familiar voice sneered. Well, if it isn't little orphan Natalie. Natalie turned to face Laurel, who had an infuriated look on her face. Natalie, not wanting any conflict, replied to the mean girl. Laurel, you should be heading to class. Save it. It's because of you my dad grounded me for saying what was true about you and your cripple of an aunt. Laurel was about to nastily say, but Natalie protested calmly, all of which is not true. You don't know anything about me or my aunt or what had happened to us in the past, since it's never any of your business anyway. Natalie attempted to head to her history class, but Laurel violently grabbed Natalie's hair and pulled it so hard that she fell to the ground and howled in pain. I'm not done with you, freak. You think you're invisible now? You think you can ignore me? Well, you can't. Because I will never stop beating you up, since you're nothing but an unloved, unwanted, and non-special orphan. Laurel shouted and kicked Natalie in the stomach, causing the poor girl to groan in agony. Laurel, stop! Please, stop it! Natalie tried to plead, but Laurel kicked Natalie in the stomach again and roared, "Shut up, freak!" Suddenly, as Laurel was about to kick Natalie once more, a strong hand grabbed Laurel's arm and immediately pulled her back when a voice boomed, "Young lady, enough." It was Principal Howard Sullivan, or Principal Sully, as all the kids called him. The man wore gray pants with a matching gray blazer, a white dress-up shirt underneath the blazer, a red tie, and black shoes. He was often a kind man who would always try to keep his students in line, helping them be comfortable and successful at school. But there was only one thing he would not tolerate in his school: harassment. This kind of behavior you have been exhibiting will not be tolerated in this school, Principal Sully reprimanded. Miss Danford emerged from her history classroom and asked, "What's going on out here?" "I'm teaching this freak a lesson for getting me in trouble with my father yesterday," Laurel accused. "She was harassing Miss Vero for no good reason, Miss Danford. Can you please take her to the nurse's office while I deal with Miss Jeffers in my office?" Principal Sully asked, earning a nod from Miss Danford, who helped Natalie get on her feet. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you looked at," Miss Danford said, linking an arm around Natalie to support her after seeing how much pain she had suffered from Laurel's violent blows. Principal Sully turned to Laurel and reprimanded, "And you, young lady, are coming with me to my office, and I am calling your father." Laurel said, trying to play dumb, "No, Principal Sully, I didn't do anything." "Save it when your father gets here. Now let's go," Principal Sully shouted, dragging Laurel to his office. Natalie, although she was in pain and felt a bit woozy, was incredibly grateful for Principal Sully and even Miss Danford coming to her rescue, but immediately feared what her aunt was going to say if the school notified her of the incident. Miss Danford stayed with Natalie while the nurse looked over Natalie's injuries. There was a purplish bruise on Natalie's stomach as well as another on her left rib cage. Miss Danford replied, "I didn't expect Natalie to go this far. I guess what had happened over at Granny's kitchen must have sent her over the edge." Natalie mumbled under her breath. Miss Danford looked over at Natalie with concern after she heard what the young girl had said. Natalie explained, her tone sounding a bit louder. "My aunt and I were at Granny's kitchen to have dinner, and we were talking about what you had told me yesterday. But Laurel was there and humiliated not just me, but my aunt as well, for making up lies about us that weren't even true." Natalie waited for a moment for Miss Danford to say something, until the English teacher replied, Laurel has usually never been like this. She used to be a very sweet girl who loved to help out with school. But ever since her mom left her 3 years ago, she became a different person. And while her father tried to make her happy again, she was already too far gone and became an angry, selfish person that everyone has seen now. But why would she take her explosive anger out on me? I've never done anything to her, Natalie said. Well, she thought she needed someone to blame for everything she had done, and now she took it too far, Miss Danford replied. Natalie understood now that Laurel was just as damaged as she was, but the bully's methods on how to deal with it were proven to be more violent and sinister. Then, Miss Danford noticed Natalie's necklace and complimented, "This necklace is pretty." Natalie looked down at her necklace and back up at her teacher before gently brushing the crystal with her index finger and saying, "Thank you. It belonged to my mother, and according to my aunt, this necklace was always my mother's good luck charm, and in my case, I have a piece of her with me." That's good to hear, but have you tried writing yet? Miss Danford asked. At lunch I did, but I couldn't think of anything. I might be having writer's block, Natalie said to her teacher with a soft chuckle. Miss Danford nodded and chuckled as well, but then encouraged. Don't give up yet, Natalie. Sometimes you can't always find inspiration. You just have to let the inspiration find you where you'll least expect it. Natalie took her teacher's words to heart, and it gave her enough hope to draft a story based on what she had dreamt of for a long while. After an hour, Principal Sully walked into the nurse's office and asked, "Miss Vero, how are you feeling?" "I'm okay, sir. Just a little bruised," Natalie replied. Principal Sully, any word on Laurel? Miss Danford asked. Well, because of the violence she inflicted on another student, Laurel is suspended for 2 months, meaning she won't be coming back after spring break, Principal Sully said, earning a sigh of relief, but a look of worry from Natalie. Noticing the young student's look, Principal Sully assured, "Don't worry, Miss Vero. Laurel is not going to bother you again." Then, Miss Jeffers walked in with Laurel, who was staring daggers at Natalie. And the man said, and even more so because once summer is over, Laurel and I are moving to Perry. I became a new manager at the grocery store, and with that new position in mind, Laurel will be attending school there as well. This was definite news to Laurel, but in the worst way possible. The bratty 13-year-old shouted, "But Daddy, I don't want to leave the school. All my friends are here." Mr. Jeffers turned to his daughter and said, "You don't have a choice, young lady. I understood that you're upset about what happened to your mother, but you have no right to take it out on a student who's been through worse." "Well, she deserved it, Dad. Maybe if she killed herself, I wouldn't be..." Laurel angrily snarled. "Miss Jeffers, enough. I hope you will do well in your new school," Principal Sully said before Mr. Jeffers turned to his daughter once more and said, "Grab your stuff and let's go." Laurel tried to protest, but it was no use, so she followed her father. She looked back at Natalie with a threatening stare and said, "This isn't over, orphan. You are going to pay for what you did to me." After Laurel left begrudgingly with her father, Principal Sully looked over at Natalie and said with a kind smile, "Miss Rio, you can head home early and inform your aunt about what had happened." "But sir, I still have a history class to get to, and also there's Miss Danford's class after that. I didn't want to miss..." Natalie tried to argue, but Miss Danford said, "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Since next week is spring break anyway, and today is Friday, you don't have to stress yourself over this. Go home, rest up, and do something fun with your aunt, and let inspiration find you." Hesitantly, Natalie grabbed her book bag before putting it on, and left school early as she headed to the bus stop. But before she could go home, she had to go somewhere else first. Natalie took the bus to the bookstore, and still feeling sore from Laurel's violent squall, and she slowly went inside the store where Kyle was at the front desk doing the inventory. She looked up to see how slowly Natalie was moving, and he was quick enough to head over to her after noticing Natalie was holding her pained side with one arm as she winced in pain. "What happened to you?" he asked Natalie worriedly. "Laurel happened," Natalie managed to say, and nearly stumbled forward before Kyle managed to catch her and guide her to the bookstore's break room. It was clear to Kyle that Laurel had taken everything at school too far, but right now he wanted to know what happened to Natalie in her exact words. So he sat her down in the break room, which consisted of a refrigerator, microwave on a counter next to it, 6 chairs, and one round table. Kyle warmed up some leftover pepperoni and sausage pizza for Natalie to eat, and gave her a water bottle to drink before he sat across from her, and said, "Tell me what happened." Natalie let out a disheartened sigh and explained, "I was on my way to class, and Laurel stopped me, accusing me of getting her in trouble with her dad at Granny's kitchen after she humiliated Aunt Mari and me in front of the whole restaurant. I tried to avoid the fight, but Laurel just wouldn't let it go. She kicked me in the stomach, pulled my hair, and said these awful things about me again. I'm just glad that Principal Sully was able to stop it before it got even worse." "And what happened to Laurel after that?" Kyle asked, folding his fingers. "She's suspended for 2 months. But she's not going to be returning to school because her dad got transferred for a new job in Perry. So Laurel will be attending a new school. She wasn't happy about it, though. Natalie explained before looking away and tugging a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. At least you don't have to worry about her causing trouble again. And she'd be somewhere far away so she can't hurt you again, Kyle said. Natalie nodded and said, I get it, but Laurel said I'm gonna regret what I did to her. She's not gonna act on it, Natalie. You shouldn't worry about it. Kyle tried to assure her, but Natalie interjected, You don't know that, Kyle. Laurel beat me up at school today for something I didn't do. And she made good on her wish to hurt me. What difference will it make tomorrow or after spring break? Because during that time, you'll be having fun with your aunt, and Laurel would be at Perry, where she can't hurt you again. You're a wonderful girl, Nat. You always have been since I met you, Kyle said. He knew this in truth after seeing how well invested Natalie was when he came to reading books. And while Natalie herself never considered herself special, at least there was one person who believed she was. Now eat up before you head home, Kyle said before heading back to the shop to do more inventory. He looked through books until he found one that caught his eye, The Never-Ending Story. Kyle remembered Natalie saying she used to love this book at a younger age because it was something her aunt used to read to her as a bedtime story. But during the move to their apartment, the book got lost and forgotten, leaving both Mari and Natalie devastated. He heard footsteps behind him as Natalie had just walked out of the break room. And she replied, I gotta get going, Kyle. Aunt Mari texted and told me that Principal Sully told her everything, and she needs me at home to talk about it. Kyle turned to Natalie and said, Okay, but before you go, I have something for you. He walked to the 13-year-old girl and handed the book to her. It didn't take long for Natalie to see what the title of the book was, and it was the same book she hadn't seen in years of her youth. She looked up at Kyle and said with a soft tone, You remembered. Of course I remembered. And I remember you telling me how sad you were when you and your aunt lost the other book during the move. Even when you watched the movie version of it, you recited the words from the book, Kyle said. Natalie sadly smiled and mumbled, It shows how much I love it. And the book is all yours, Kyle announced with a grin, causing Natalie to look up at him with surprise. The 13-year-old tried to say, Oh no, Kyle, I can't possibly take this. Hey kid, I'm not taking no for an answer. I understood that all of the joy you had was broken after what had happened at school and to your mother. Maybe having this book that you've loved since you were a kid can help you bring back that joy, Kyle advised. Natalie felt inspired after Kyle told her this. She had lost so much joy in her life after everything she had endured in both her personal life and school life. And for once in her life, she needed to feel happy again. Thankfully, she now had her favorite childhood book to help her go through it again. Thank you, Kyle, Natalie said before walking up to hug him. Kyle hugged her back and replied with a gentle tone, You're welcome, kid. Natalie pulled away from him and put the book in her book bag before making her way out of the door, with Kyle shouting from behind, Say hi to your aunt for me. Natalie turned around and said, Will do. See you tomorrow. After exiting the bookstore, Natalie walked up to the bus stop where she was about to wait for the bus to take her home, until a voice sneered, "Well, well, well, if it isn't the loser that got me kicked out of school." Natalie turned to the voice's owner, Laurel. "This girl never seems to quit making me miserable," Natalie thought to herself with an annoyed look in her eyes. "What do you want, Laurel? Haven't you caused enough trouble already?" Natalie asked. "Oh, I'm just getting started, because it's because of you that I'm kicked out of school, and my dad is making me go to school in an icky small town. You humiliated me," Laurel snarled, trying to intimidate the girl. However, Natalie stood her ground and said, "You did this to yourself, Laurel. And your dad said it himself. You guys are moving to Perry due to a new job. And you have no choice but to transfer to another school. I had nothing to do with..." "Stop lying, witch!" Laurel shouted, but paused when she noticed Natalie's rose quartz necklace. Natalie backed away as she could sense that Laurel was about to do something awful. Then Laurel demanded, "Give me the necklace." "Excuse me?" Natalie asked it in a mix of naivete and confusion. "Don't play dumb. Give me that necklace right now," Laurel shouted. Natalie instinctively grasped the rose quartz necklace with a protective grip and said, "Absolutely not, Laurel. You're seriously not thinking straight." "I'm not asking you to give it to me. I'm telling you," Laurel snarled. "I'm not giving you a piece of what was left of my mother, because she would have wanted me to have this necklace. It's important to her, and it's also important to me," Natalie said, but Laurel wasn't moved by her words. "Well, if you're not going to give it to me, then I'm just going to have to take it," Laurel said, and attempted to rip the necklace off Natalie's neck. But Natalie was quick enough to dodge Laurel's attempt and immediately ran off, not bothering to wait for the upcoming bus. Laurel ran after Natalie while shouting at her victim, "Hey, get back here!" But Natalie didn't listen to her and ran faster, not noticing where she could be running to, until she finally found herself at Boomer Lake Park. She noticed an unusual cave in the middle of the park. She didn't remember the cave being here before, but her thoughts were interrupted when she heard Laurel shout, "Hey, freak, give me that necklace now!" With no other choice, Natalie ran to the cave and hid inside the cave's darkness. Thankfully, Laurel didn't see where Natalie had hidden the minute she arrived at the park. Laurel scanned the park to find any trace of Natalie so she could finally take Natalie's necklace. But to her utter disappointment, she was nowhere to be found. And Laurel didn't bother to look into the cave, as she never even noticed it. "Fine, but when you come out of wherever you're hiding at, I will track you down during spring break and take that necklace, and you will never get it back," Laurel shouted before storming off with a begrudging snarl. Natalie listened to her bully's threat from the cave and felt her heart racing. This time, Laurel took everything too far and will make good on her threat by taking her mother's necklace and doing God knows what with it. Fearing that Laurel was going to follow her if she walked home, Natalie decided to wait out in the cave, but found herself feeling a bit tired. Natalie gently took off her book bag and positioned it on the rocky ground as a pillow to sleep on for the night. With only the sounds of birds chirping to soothe her, Natalie drifted off to sleep, not noticing for a moment that the cave entrance was quietly and discreetly closing off as Natalie, once she woke up, was in for an adventure of her life. An adventure that she would never forget. Alright guys, that's the end of chapter 3. I'm terribly sorry for the noise that my cat caused and for any stumbling that I did, but I hope you guys enjoy and stay tuned for chapter 4. Bye!